Have self-checkouts failed? Self-checkouts were originally designed to save businesses money, but have they done just the opposite? At first glance, it sounds like a surefire idea, right? Self-checkout kiosks are created to revolutionize the shopping experience by cutting down on labor costs, streamlining the checkout process, and giving customers more control. But there's a lot more to this idea and its implementation that has ultimately made self-checkout harder for many retailers to justify as being worthwhile. In order to fully understand the difficult decisions that many of these companies now face with this technology, today we're going to take a look back at what the original goal of self-checkout was, then we're going to discuss the harsh reality, including the rise of theft and its impact on retailers, and finally we're going to crunch the numbers to figure out exactly how much these machines are costing businesses or if they're actually making them money. When self-checkout was first introduced in 1992, the goal was simple: cut costs. The idea was that retailers could reduce the number of employees needed at checkout counters, which would then allow them to allocate their workforce elsewhere in the company or even eliminate some of these jobs entirely. Retailers could then shift some of this work to the customers and save a bit of money at the same time. It sounded great on paper, especially in places like grocery stores where margins are already notoriously thin. Although this sounded like a great idea in the eyes of retailers, it was also meant to benefit the customers. Because multiple customers could check out simultaneously, the checkout process would be faster, and long lines would hopefully be reduced or eliminated entirely. It also gave customers more control as they could scan items at their own pace and would not necessarily be reliant on a cashier. But here's the catch: self-checkouts have now become a major source of theft. Whether it's accidental or on purpose, stores are losing lots of money from this. The loss of inventory due to theft is referred to as shrinkage, which has become a massive issue for retailers worldwide. Studies have shown that theft rates at self-kiosks are nearly 4 times higher than at traditional kiosks. Last year, in a survey conducted by LendingTree, they found that 15% of self-checkout users admitted to stealing it, and nearly half of them plan to do it again. And remember, that's only the people admitted to doing it. Even among those who try to be diligent in scanning each item, 21% admit to accidentally taking an item, and most don't correct the mistake. Chances are, if you are a frequent shopper, there's probably been a time or two when you've taken an item without paying for it, whether you realized it later or not. That is simply because there's a lot of potential for human error in each of these transactions. So how much money are companies actually losing? Let's take Walmart for example. Walmart estimates that up to 50% of its shrinkage within the past few years has come from self-checkout theft. Considering this number, this would mean that Walmart lost $1.5 billion from self-checkout theft in 2021 alone, which skyrocketed to $3 billion in 2022 and $3.3 billion in 2023. Walmart's #1 most stolen category of items is cosmetics, which if you've been to any kind of Walmart recently, you may have noticed that most of them now have a dedicated enclosed section for cosmetic items. Before even leaving these areas with their items, shoppers must check out and pay for their selections with a cashier. But Walmart isn't alone. Other major retailers like Target are feeling the shrinkage pressure too. They have continued to lose hundreds of millions of dollars each year from self-checkout theft. In response, Target has implemented a 10-item limit to their self-checkout, hoping that smaller transactions will be both less prone to human error and less likely to get stolen. And it's not just grocery stores. Home Depot has had a lot of thefts, including a group of 3 men who managed to cost Home Depot $100,000 as they switched barcodes on expensive roof sealers for items that costed 95% less, and they hit several Home Depot stores each day before they were caught. To counter these kinds of issues, Home Depot has developed Bluetooth chips embedded in certain items that must be activated upon purchase. These items will not function unless they are paid for and activated in store, or if it's something that doesn't need to function, they'll make a loud beeping sound when you leave the store. TJX Companies, the parent company of stores like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and HomeGoods, is even equipping body cameras on their loss prevention associates. Other stores like Target are using all kinds of AI to try to assist in identifying suspicious behavior. These tools include AI-driven surveillance cameras and better self-checkout monitoring for items not being scanned properly or intentional barcode switching, which is the tactic we talked about in the Home Depot example of scanning cheaper items in place of more expensive ones. But paying for all these extra security measures begs the question: is self-checkout really worth it? With a large portion of theft stemming right back to self-checkout, it makes you wonder if these systems are really worth the hassle. To determine if self-checkout is really worth it, let's take a look at how much these kiosks cost both to install, maintain, and how much they cost in shrinkage. Looking at some of the models that major companies like Walmart and Target would buy, that include features like RFID scanning and built-in scales, prices can exceed $20,000 per kiosk. Then you still need to factor in annual fees for maintenance, which start at around $1,000 per unit, and can jump to over $3,000 for machines that include cash. Next, we need to look at the shrinkage rate for self-checkout items, which shows the percentage of inventory loss resulting directly from shrinkage. The shrinkage rate for these machines is estimated to fall between 3.5 and 4%, while the rate for traditional cashier systems is less than 1%. With these numbers in mind, let's run a scenario with Walmart. Although Walmart does not give out exact data on the cost of its kiosks, let's assume they use a kiosk similar to the one mentioned earlier, costing around $20,000 upfront, plus an additional $1,000 annually for maintenance. And while there can be varying numbers of self-checkout kiosks per store, let's assume a certain Walmart store has 10 self-checkout kiosks. With 10 kiosks costing $20,000 each, that gives us a total upfront cost of about $200,000. And assuming maintenance is roughly $1,000 annually for each machine, that comes out to about $10,000 each year just for routine maintenance. Now, each Walmart is going to vary in terms of annual sales, but in 2023, the average Walmart store in the United States produced approximately $100 million in sales. With that in mind, this means that Walmart in our scenario will have lost $4 million annually based on a 4% shrinkage rate. Now that we've evaluated the costs involved in self-checkout kiosks at one Walmart, let's take a look at the costs of hiring traditional cashiers. The average Walmart cashier will make $13 an hour, and a full-time cashier working 40 hours a week will make roughly $27,000 a year. Now, let's assume that Walmart hires 5 additional cashiers to replace the 10 self-checkout kiosks, just because cashiers theoretically are going to be more efficient than someone checking themselves out. This would mean that their annual labor cost would increase by $135,000 a year. Walmart will still experience shrinkage no matter what, and if we assume that number is close to 1% like we mentioned earlier, Walmart will still lose about $1 million in annual shrinkage. Even if you exclude the original price of the kiosks being around $200,000 for the store, Walmart will still have a total annual loss of $4 million due to maintenance costs and shrinkage. With the traditional checkout format, Walmart's annual loss from labor costs and shrinkage comes out to be about $1.135 million, which is nearly $2.9 million less than with the self-checkout kiosk format. In this scenario, we can see that self-checkouts and their implications have actually cost retailers more than they may be saving from having a few less employees. So despite self-checkout lanes being designed to save companies money and make the customer experience better, the reality is that self-checkout lanes are losing companies millions of dollars each year. So how do you think we should solve this problem? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.